Welcome back to the Ask Lee segment, and if you are not subscribed and you like my content, please subscribe and like and share and comment, and it helps the algorithm, gets more people involved. And the Ask Lee segment obviously relies on people's questions, so the more questions I have, the more of these videos I can do. So if you have a question that you would like me to answer in Ask Lee, then just leave it in the comments below and I'll add it to the queue. Alright, so today we're going to continue with questions from Nea Night. I do realize that Nea said at the end here, this got super long, I'm sorry if it's too much or if you answered some of this already. Don't apologize, please. These questions are excellent, and they are questions that a lot of people ask, so adding them to these videos is great. Okay, so let's get into the rest of the questions. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Right, so continuing from last week, Nea Night's questions. Let's see. What about the hierarchies? Some sources about classical ceremonial magic say that you shouldn't call high-ranking demons as a beginner. One that I read said, for example, Lucifer isn't great for beginners, but you listed them as one of the best 10 demons for beginners. You also mentioned in another video that working with the hierarchies would implement that some spirits are not as powerful as others, if I got that correctly. Any advice or thoughts on that? Alright, so when it comes to the hierarchies, I don't like this idea of hierarchies. When we talk about, if we go into something like the Goetia, we have the kings and the dukes and the knights, etc., etc., etc. So it places them in this hierarchy, and because of our society, we consider these hierarchies to be rankings of people or beings which are higher than others. Same with the caste system. We often consider it to be people of a particular caste are higher than another caste, and when we think about higher, we think of more powerful. It's not really the case. When it comes to the hierarchies, it is just placing them in a particular arena or sphere which is prevalent to who they are, what they can do, etc. It doesn't mean that kings are more powerful than knights. Alright, it just puts them in that area. In fact, if you look at the Dukant hierarchy, specifically mentioned by Connolly, then what you find is that he kind of places them into families. So you have a hierarchy of demons or a family of demons which are focused on love, lust, and that area. Then you have some which are focused on healing, and then some that are focused on war. So you have these what is called hierarchies within the Dukant hierarchy, but they're actually families of spirits which focus on a particular aspect. Alright, so I definitely don't like using this idea of hierarchies, and I don't even like to say King Paimon or give them that hierarchical title. And from what I've experienced, they're not particularly fussed about it. They don't really give a damn. Other people may experience that differently. That's just my experience, but definitely wouldn't place them in hierarchies. And when it comes to ceremonial magic, ceremonial magic is very much based in Christian mythology and Christian worldview. So they are obviously going to come along with this idea that we have demons which are more powerful than other demons, and angels are above the demons, and you know, this power-based system where one spirit's more powerful than another, is more powerful than another, and etc., etc. And when it comes to ceremonial magic, that is the worldview. It is very much based on a Christian worldview, and that's what you're going to get. To say that Lucifer is not good for beginners is, in my opinion, extremely wrong. Lucifer is the light bringer, the bringer of gnosis, the bringer of knowledge, the entity which will illuminate your path. So I think Lucifer is perfect for beginners. But, you know, again, just my experience and my opinion. All right, so let's go on to the next question. When I have called on the 5 elemental kings in a circle and I want to work with one of them in the following ritual spell, do I call on this one specifically again, even if they are there already, for example, Leviathan, or do I call on another demon for the circle instead that has the same elemental correspondence as them, for example, water, and can take their place in the circle so I can work with the elemental king? You can actually do both. There's no hard and fast rule. So what you can do, if you want to work specifically with the element of water, okay, and not the aspect or office which is specific to a particular demon, because when we think of an element can cover a lot of different things. And even if you look at healing, I was speaking the other day to someone about calling 2 demons into a circle for healing, and it was Varine and Marbas. Now, Varine is very much focused on the organic aspect of healing, the herbal healing, the herbal aspect, plant law. There we go, plant law. Whereas Marbas is very good at the mechanical aspect of healing. So they're both healing, but their focus is in slightly different areas. So when we think of an element like water, it can cover a lot of different things. So if you want to focus specifically on one part of the element of water, one aspect of it, then you can call a demon which is primarily focused in that area. But if you want to work with the element overall, then you can work with the elemental king, or you can work with a spirit which is based in that whole water element. So you can do both. And what you would do in that case would be to cast your circle using the 5 elemental kings, so it balances the space that you're in. And then you would come back to the one you want to work with, and you would sit and you would invoke that particular spirit. So you're pulling in that energy of water, and that can be, in this case, you've cast your circle with Lucifer, Flarius, Leviathan, Belial, and Satan, and then you come back all the way around to the west, and you would then sit and you would specifically work with Leviathan and pull more of that element in. So what you've done at first is balance the space with all of the elements. Then you go back to one particular element and you pull more of that element in. And you can do the opposite. If you need to release a particular element, there may be an imbalance and you've got too much of one particular element, you can release it. So you can actually invoke that spirit of that element and ask it to release the element itself and to bring the balance back. That's what they're really looking to do, is bring balance. So if you work with a particular spirit for a particular element, and either way, whether you need more or you need less, that particular spirit can help you in both regards. Or you can come back to the west and work with a completely different spirit, which represents that element. Because you also need to remember that when it comes to this placement of Lucifer, Flarius, Leviathan, Belial, and Satan or Satan, you don't necessarily have to work with those spirits. That's just what is suggested, and that's suggested via Connolly. You can work with other spirits which represent the element for you. So if, for instance, you feel that Asmodeus is more associated with fire than Flerius is, then you replace Flerius with Asmodeus in the direction of fire. So you don't need to actually stick with those spirits. They are good spirits to work with when you are starting out, because it has been tested. It has been done before by people that have gone before you. So it is good to actually work with those spirits, those particular spirits, until you understand how the elements balance, how the elements work, and such things. And then when you start working with other spirits, you may find that one is better suited for you in a particular position on the circle, and then you just replace that spirit there. Okay, let's see, next question. Should I, as a beginner, first try to build a relationship with the demon I want to work with? For example, build an altar, give them offerings, talk to them, etc., before I do my first official ritual in which I contact them and introduce myself properly and formally to them? Yes, absolutely. That is the best way to do it. And you might find, I will say this, you might find that if you put in all that work of offerings and prayers and such things, and then you go and contact the spirit and speak with them directly, they may turn around and say, our energies don't really mix very well. And they may give you a suggestion. It may be a suggestion of you want to work with this particular energy. This spirit here would probably be better suited for you. That could be the case, but definitely not in all situations, but just want you to be aware of that just in case it does crop up. But yes, definitely work with the spirit and build that relationship first, because once you've built that relationship, you also build trust and honor. You have put in the work to show that you want to do the dedication, or you have the dedication to actually go ahead and do what needs to be done, and that creates a lot of trust, and it creates a lot of friendship with the spirit. One of the very early methods, and if I remember correctly, this came from Aaron Leach, long time ago, early days, 15-20 years ago, was the idea of creating a spirit box. And what the spirit box was, it was simply just a box which had some kind of graphical representation drawn on the top, or just the name of the spirit. And this was specifically relating to Goetia demons at the time. So you put the actual sigil of the spirit on the top of the box, and then inside you put offerings. You can put in prayers. You can write out prayers, and you can put them in the box. But you would work specifically with that spirit, and you would continue to make the offerings and prayers and speak to the spirit itself, and you build that relationship. And through building that relationship, what happens also is you come into closer contact with the energy. So if you are every day sitting down and you're just talking to the spirit, you're chanting the N, and you're giving offerings, you're sharing a glass of water, you're lighting a candle, you're lighting some incense, whatever it may be, then you start to attune yourself to the energy of that particular spirit. And once you come into the same frequency, then you'll find that the connection becomes a lot easier as well. So the act of actually communicating with that spirit becomes a lot easier when you want to do it. So yes, definitely do that. If I don't have much space for many different altars, and I want to create an altar space for a demon, is it okay to give them a space on an already existing altar where I already have a candle and offerings for my ancestors, for example? Or does the demon need a separate space that is dedicated just to them, just to be safe? asking from the perspective that I can't really just ask the demon directly what they want, because I've never communicated with one before and just want to start a relationship with them for the very first time. Alright, if you do have a space problem, you don't really want to put, some people will, I personally don't like mixing an ancestor altar with a deity altar. They're two very different energies, two very different classes or types of spirits, so I don't like mixing those kind of energies together within an altar. I did speak about this previously, whereby you may find that you are wanting to work with two different spirits, whether they're gods, goddesses, demons, angels, whatever it is, and their energies may not work together. In that case, you want to separate them, and through that separation, it doesn't need to be one altar on one side of the house and another altar on the other side of the house. You can still use, if you've got like a shelf, you can still use the same shelf, but you have a candle and a representation for the one spirit here, and you have a candle and a representation for the other spirit here. When you want to work with this one, you light this candle. When you want to work with this one, you light this candle. So it brings the focus into that particular spirit. So it doesn't need to be completely separate, but you do have to separate them in the case of the spirits not being able to mesh together. Their energies just don't mix. If their energies do mix, if you have two spirits that you are working with and the energies go very well together, or even a group of spirits that go very well together, then you can just set up one altar with representations of each spirit and have one candle. And when you light it, you are then speaking to all of them at the same time, and then you can direct questions to one of them. But another thing you could do is you can wear a pendant with the demon's seal on it. You could even just draw the sigil or the seal on a piece of paper, fold it up and put it in your pocket. As whenever you go and put, well, if you've got pockets, I suppose, whenever you put your hands in your pockets, you feel the piece of paper. It triggers a subconscious memory of wanting to build that relationship with the spirit. So you don't actually need any space. If you do have a problem with space, we can have a lot of space where we have an entire temple room. We can then have just a small space where we only have a single tabletop or a shelf or something, and we can work with that. If we cannot do that at all, then we can take a candle and take some incense. You can get you can even get a shoebox if you want to. In the shoebox, you just put the items in. You put your candle in, you put your incense in, you put any sigils you want to work with. You can, you've got your incense, so you can put some oil in there which you use to anoint yourself, some altar oil or anointing oil, if you want to use that. But really, all you need is a candle, some incense, and that can be incense sticks. It doesn't need to be resins or loose incense. And some kind of representation of the spirit you want to work with. Usually in this case with the demons, it's a sigil. That's the three things you need. Okay, so you can have a shoebox, which is actually quite large now. So reduce the box. You can have a little box with a little candle with some incense and a sigil. Okay, that's all you need. Then when you want to work the spirit, you take out the items, you put them on a little table, you close the door, make sure nobody's going to disturb you, put them on a table, a side table, bedside table, whatever it is, or on the floor if you don't have a table, and light the incense, light the candle, and sit there and work with the spirit. So really, when it comes to space, you don't need any space at all. If you are, even in the case of casting a circle, all you need is a space to be able to sit in. So if you can sit cross-legged on the floor, or if you have a chair, because in order to get into the chair, you've got to be able to stand in front of it. So you can just have a chair or a space that you can sit on the floor, and that's all you need. Because when you cast in a circle, you don't have to walk, a 9-foot circle all the way around. You can stand in one spot, face a direction, invoke that direction, that element, that deity, that demon, then all you do is you just turn and face the other direction and do the same thing and turn. So all you're doing is turning in the same spot. So you don't need all of that space. You don't need a big temple room just to work with spirits. Yeah, so I'm going on a bit here. I think you get the gist of that. Let me see. Last question. What is the appropriate way to address a demon? In English, there's just the word you. But I'm German, and we have different words depending on what relationship you have with the person you're talking to. There's du, I'm not sure if that's du or thu, which we use for people we know well personally, family, friends, sometimes co-workers, or even your boss, if they're okay with that, etc. Then we have si, which we use formally, people we don't know, usually your boss, authority figures, etc. And then there's the old word, the very old the. Is that no? That's an L, or is that an I? I'm not sure. Lur. You know what the word is. You wrote this, which isn't used anymore today, and that was used way back in the day when talking to people of royalty and stuff like that. Which would I use when talking to a demon? Good question, actually. Something I've never actually thought of, because, when I'm obviously English, so let's see. When I'm talking to a spirit, I refer to the spirit as you. Yes. I think in your case, what you could probably do is use the word which is formal in the beginning. What you'll probably find is when you start talking to the spirit, they become family. So then you can use the word which is appropriate for that representation. You can use the very old word, which would give respect. I suppose in English we could say that we would use the word sir or ma'am, giving that respect. And in some cases, depending on if it's family, we may say uncle or aunt. Well, not even family. I mean, children who speak to an older person usually often refer to them as uncle or aunt or auntie, because it shows respect. So use a word which shows respect in that regard, and you feel you're comfortable with. And then, as I say, later on, what you'll probably find is when you are communicating with the spirit, once you're talking with them, they will just say, you don't need to use this word, use that other word, because they become family. You build that relationship and you get close to them. So then you can use that particular word. All right, that's all of those questions, and hopefully I answered them sufficiently. Okay, if I didn't, then if there's any more questions, then just ask them. As I said, these are fantastic questions, and they are questions that a lot of people will consider, and sometimes people don't consider or don't think about the questions they're actually wanting to ask. So when somebody else asks them, they go, "Oh, I wanted to know that." So all of these questions are fantastic, and don't never apologize for asking questions. It's something we have to do. It's the only way we learn witchcraft, is to ask questions. Okay, so keep them coming, keep them rolling, and I'll see you next week. Okay, have a good one for now. Bye bye.